On June 6, 2018, the UN Human Rights Council issued a 19-page report about Saudi Arabia. The report has a lengthy title, but in the interest of simplification, it's about protecting human rights while countering terrorism. The report contains quite a few contradictions, which we will go over shortly. To give you a little bit of context, the report makes some allegations that can easily be refuted using the same exact report. The first of these allegations is that Saudi Arabia tortures its detainees. The second is that Saudi Arabia has a broad definition of terrorism. We will start with the torture allegation. On page 9, under section C1, use of torture, coerced confessions, and lack of accountability. It states that the Special Rapporteur received well-documented reports of the use of torture and ill treatment by law enforcement officials against individuals accused of having committed acts of terrorism. However, the same exact report goes on to contradict itself on page 13 under section D, point number 56, which states, he was particularly impressed by the conditions of detention in 2 of the 5 dedicated prisons that he visited, and which hold terrorist suspects and those convicted of terrorism. In addition to point number 57 in the exact same report, which reads, the Special Rapporteur was impressed with the professional evidence-based and imaginative rehabilitation and reintegration programs designed in the Mohammed bin Nayef Counseling and Care Center. This facility houses prisoners convicted of terrorism who are nearing the end of their sentences and provides them with a range of alternative life skills, from psychotherapy to professional training and religious instruction, which are designed to offer a counter-narrative to radicalization. The statement that calls the validity of the entire report into question can be found on page 10, point number 39, which clearly says, torture can be difficult to prove. So which of these statements should we believe? It's important to pose this question, as these contradictions make the report seem driven by agenda, not facts. Now that we address the torture allegation, let's move to the second allegation, which is the broad definition of terrorism. This is what the report clearly says on page 6, point number 17. The Special Rapporteur concurs with this assessment and considers that the definition of terrorism in the 2014 Law on Counter-Terrorism and its financing is objectionably broad and fails to comply with international human rights standards. The concept of terrorism should be confined to acts or threats of violence committed for political, ideological, religious, or other motives, aimed at spreading fear among the population or sections of it, in order to coerce a government or international organization to take or refrain from taking any action. Yet on page 17, point number 68, it goes on to say, as a key counter-terrorism partner at the international level, Saudi Arabia must show that it is serious about countering and preventing terrorism and violent extremism that can lead to terrorism. So the report should be clear. Does the UN want Saudi Arabia to combat terrorism, the ideologies that lead to terrorism, and the people who are supported by terrorist organizations? Or do they just want Saudi Arabia to combat anyone who solely uses violence? Terrorism should be confronted on 3 battlefronts: manpower, money, and mind. It's very interesting to see a non-factual report about the kingdom while it's going through the biggest social, religious, and economic reforms in its history. While Saudi Arabia is not perfect, just like any other country, we find it very difficult to accept the findings of a report that only seems to want to draw similarities between Saudi prisons and Guantanamo detention facilities.